Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today, and we are bringing you the latest and greatest from the VR, AR, and XR industries. Today on, we have, yet again, another special guest. We have on Jordan Rose, founder of Metaverse law firm, the Rose Law Group. So it's a pleasure to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Demond. I'm excited to talk to you.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. And so we're getting into a very interesting subject about metaverse law. So I have a few family members who have been in law practices in the past. So tell us, what do you do for metaverse law, and how did you get into this career?
Yeah, so I started my law firm, Rose Law Group, 23 years ago, in the state of Arizona, actually in another lawyer's storage closet. Um, and we've grown to the largest woman-owned law firm in the state of Arizona's history. I've been entrepreneurial in the narrow field of law, and I like to try to find areas of life that lawyers have not yet entered. I find that challenging. I find it interesting, and I find it really necessary. So, we entered the cannabis field before any other law firms were in that, and renewable energy and cyber defamation. And then more recently, we became the first full service law firm on the metaverse for metaverse based businesses. And we bought some property on the metaverse of Decentraland. We built an architecturally significant building. And we hired blockchain developers, coders, and 3D architects. I believe we're the only law firm in the world that has done that in order to work with our lawyer teams to be able to take any sort of metaverse project from legal due diligence and formation all the way through to NFT creation, smart contract drafting or auditing, and then gamification experiences. So we can sort of do the entire deal if a client wants that. And it's been fascinating. I think your question was, why did you get into this? Because, yeah, a lot of lawyers and they're not doing metaverse law. But I think it was during COVID. I have two boys that are teenagers, and I saw, probably like anyone with teenage boys, they started just talking online and gaming online and communicating. It was all online because certainly they couldn't go out of the house and meet friends because of COVID. But it just amplified that experience of connection, through digital means. And so it just sort of hit me that, these kids that will be grown up soon, are going to interact in a much different way. And the legal needs of people who are doing business and doing their social lives and having all of the things that we have, truly immersive life experiences on the metaverse, will need lawyers. And so I decided at that moment that we, wanted to get there first and be well equipped to handle clients' needs in that sector. We have lots of innovators as clients, and so it was a natural fit for our innovative clients for us to start offering those types of services.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, it's a very interesting story. And so, yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. So we'll get into, I guess, the juicy bits of the conversation as well. Some of the questions that we'll use to kind of touch on this subject, because, metaverse law is not really like it's a rising space within the law, within law groups, as well as within the metaverse, because the metaverse is just coming around. And I know that law firms such as yours, as well as I think it was Claris Law, has also been quite involved in this space. So for you, imagine you get a court case. How would you approach it? How would you assign lawyers, or what kind of special qualifications would they need to take on a kind of case such as this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think you could think of the metaverse as just sort of the next iteration of how we communicate, how we work and play. And I know you know that, but it sort of provides for a very broad level of legal interactions. So so right now we're doing things like prenuptial agreements for couples, crypto assets on a blockchain. And so our family lawyers are very involved with that, along with our coders and developers, because we're, drafting these blockchain agreements and smart contracts. We're doing due diligence for digital real estate transactions, and we're seeing a lot of that, right? Instead of buying property, terrestrially, they're buying property in Sandbox or Decentraland or whatever, and they want to make sure that what they're getting is actually what they think they're getting. In addition to that, one of the very large business areas that we have is auditing of the smart contracts. So if you buy an NFT, or you buy, or if you create an NFT, somebody did your smart contract, or you buy something on a metaverse, you'll have a smart contract, and you really need that, second opinion, that audit, because my guess is most people don't know how to read code. And if you buy something and you have no idea, you can't read it, it's kind of it could become a problem. And we've seen so many headlines of litigation surrounding, these smart contracts. And I think that's only going to get, more prevalent. So that's kind of interesting. And then we're doing a lot of decentralized autonomous organization structures, which is really decentralizing the way that corporate orations are structured. And that's been fascinating work. I think that'll, really skyrocket. We've done a lot of regulatory compliance work where people are trying to figure out how they can comply with various, laws relating to what they're doing, what they're selling, those kinds of things. And then cryptocurrency disputes, litigation regarding, the crypto assets. And you can hardly, spend a day without seeing somebody getting frauded by, someone selling them a fake NFT that turns out to be a picture or something like that, or, somehow stealing their crypto. And, so those kinds of things are very interesting. And so the question of, who do you assign it to is very broad. I mean, it just depends on, we have certain lawyers who just really work in the cyber and metaverse and Web3 area. But some of these areas of law are very terrestrial based. The family lawyers are going to translate their prenuptial agreements onto a blockchain contract. And so, I think it's the future of business, certainly, and it's the future of law.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I know, there's going to be so many things as the metaverse grows. You'll have new laws that you need to look
Totally.
at, and the
Yeah,
books are expected to expand exponentially over the next decade, I assume.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right about that. And the imagination is really the limit, right, with what people are creating on the metaverse. So it means that, some of the things that we are going to end up, litigating or creating from a legal perspective are things we can't even imagine yet. And that's a little mind blowing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. It's
Hmm.
you deal with criminal law, you deal with civil court cases. It's usually pretty straightforward, not so much for the
Right.
metaverse.
Right. Like who would have thought, you would be dealing with, cyber identity theft. I mean, that's like 10 years ago, you would have been like, what is that? That doesn't even exist. So I feel like the answer to your question is going to evolve probably on a monthly basis.
Absolutely, and that actually makes me want to, kind of check out another kind of section for the conversation. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the blockages or the obstacles, the hindrances to developing a system for metaverse law. Like, how would this play out over the years? Do you think there will be regional laws? Will there be national, global, international law? How do you see this playing out?
I think that's a fantastic question. I think that, you'll have Harvard and Stanford and every prominent law firm studying that and trying to come up with, the right course of, development of sort of a standard of law across metaverse. I know there's already some groups trying to do like a constitution on the metaverse, which would set out sort of the legal definitions. Right now you have a situation where there's not a metaverse law. If there's no law of the metaverse, like there is a law of outer space, most people don't ever interact with that, so they don't know, but there's a treaty and there's a law of outer space. And certainly we have all our state laws and our federal laws, but there's no metaverse law. So you have to fall back to, what's the contract? What state is the contract in, right? where's the business transaction happening? And it's pretty confusing. I mean, it's something that's going to be looked at, and probably seen differently by various lawyers and maybe judges, as to where, the legal, what law applies in certain instances. And a lot of it is really a law of the contract, because you're entering into a contract to purchase something, or, what have you. And so, unless litigation arises, you're not going to hopefully have to sue anyone. But when you do have to sue, it'll be fascinating to see, it's a case by case basis. It could be in federal court. It could be in the state court. It could be, international. So I think you're going to end up seeing, people proposing sort of a standard of metaverse law. And, maybe there'll be like the Hague of a metaverse, legal community. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows? Maybe the International Criminal Court may open their own space in the sandbox over the next few years. So
Yeah,
only time will tell.
right, right. Well, we even thought about, will there be a bar association, the group that all lawyers belong to, where, they get their law licenses from. Will there be that in the metaverse? And probably yes, at some point, as more firms start to have a presence there.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It'd be interesting to see how that's going to look out, in
it
the next
really
few years.
will.
But
It really will.
definitely
Yeah.
passing the bar in the metaverse is probably going to be a bit more challenging.
Yeah, it'll definitely have some funky questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of that, I was going to ask you like a little bit. We look at cases like there was a very special case with the Grand Theft Auto, and I remember there were some product placements within the game, and I think it was Rockstar Games. They went to litigation with another company over this issue, and they talked a little bit about intellectual property rights in the metaverse. So, what can you tell us about how you handle intellectual property rights?
I think this is the biggest question we're asked on a daily basis, to tell you the truth, because there's so many new creations coming, and everyone wants to be able to protect their creation, because they've spent so much time and effort, creativity, and money on, creating a product, a game, a metaverse, some sort of blockchain code, and they want to be able to protect it. So, you can trademark, you can copyright, you can have protections with the contracts that you enter into when someone purchases whatever, or participates in your game, and, try to protect yourself in those ways. Patents are harder to, imagine, because of the coding, and the unique nature. And so I think we're going to see a lot of development on how, things are protected. We're trying to be as cautious as, legally possible, and protect our clients' intellectual property in every possible way. So some of those things are very obvious, and some of those things are maybe not so obvious. But because the law is yet undeveloped, in that people haven't litigated on the metaverse yet to know, how these things will turn out, we're just trying to do as many layers of protection, create as many layers of protection for clients as possible. I mean, it's stunning to see, how much work goes into these gamification sort of projects, and then to think that somebody could come and rip you off with no, recourse that's not acceptable, at least to us. So we've been protecting people from that as best as you possibly can. But that's going to be, I mean, I'm telling you, that is literally that's exactly what we talk about every day. It's an inventor who says, I have got this really cool idea. And you look at it and you're like, that's mind-blowingly cool. And then you go, geez, if somebody else just copies him, I mean, that would not be good. So yeah, so we're dealing with a lot of that. So
Yeah, and that raises a very interesting question, because there's a lot of proponents of the open metaverse, where everything's basically open source. Code is now becoming, freely distributed across different, groups. So only, I often ask myself, like, if someone invents something, where do we draw the line between proprietary and open source technologies? So that's going to be interesting how you guys approach that as well.
I totally agree. I mean, that's the thing is it's not like you can design something and keep it a secret. It's on the blockchain. Somebody can, I mean, not everybody can read this stuff, but the ones that can, so it is open. I mean, it's by nature, it's decentralized and open. So it creates this really strange framework where, especially if you're already in business and you've invented things and you have legal intellectual property protections on past games or past, products, and you go into this, universe and you're like, wait a minute, everybody gets to read what I just, did. And you're like, well, yeah, they kind of do, so you have to figure out how to protect that the best that you can. And it almost shifts your thinking about what is legal protection, what can you do to protect your idea, and what is being ripped off, and what is just kind of complementarily copying you. So it's very difficult. It's a challenge. It's a great legal challenge of our future and our current
Absolutely.
situation.
Absolutely, definitely, yeah. I would actually like to ask you, like, if there's anything else that you wanted to add based on metaverse law from your previous experiences, or things that you'd like to raise, to our audiences.
Well, I think, it's like, it's so interesting because with our cross between the law and being able to create these experiences with the people we've hired that are, architects and coders and stuff, we've seen so many interesting applications. Like one is we did a project for Habitat for Humanity. And it was the first nonprofit fundraiser on the metaverse for a terrestrial based project. So we went up with a 3D model of the Habitat home, and people could tour it and see, a presentation from their CEO and stuff. And then they could buy NFTs, and that money went to actually build real homes for people in need here, on Earth. And that was such a cool, just to see how geography just makes no difference anymore. They were getting funders for their nonprofit from, thousands of miles away in different countries. And if you think about it, raising money for a nonprofit used to be just sitting in a ballroom in, whatever Boston or whatever city you're in. And those 300 people who came were the only ones who were ever affected by your project or were ever able to kind of donate. And this allowed like a global experience to improve housing and affordability, for the population. And I just thought when we looked at that and the kind of the legal implications of that, just geography doesn't make a difference. And is that going to be how the shift, is that shift in, geographical irrelevance also going to extend to law and laws? And like you were saying, Damon, before, like what law governs in certain situations? And, will there be a law of the metaverse? And we'll see. That's to be continued.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that technology is basically one of the inventions from humanity that it gets over a lot of the different blockages between people. It makes the world smaller, as the technology
Right.
proves. And so as we begin to interact with technology, I think that a lot of futurists will be looking at this and saying, okay, well, our world is now so interconnected that we will now, basically, we're all neighbors now, it seems, especially
Exactly.
in the metaverse.
Right. It's so true. We're all neighbors. I love how you said that. I mean, you think about the dinner party you went to last weekend, you were probably there with people you liked, but why were you connected? Well, because they kind of live near you, whereas the dinner party we'll go to in the metaverse, I don't know, you may be there with people that you'll never see in real, in person. So it's fascinating. It does make the world a smaller place. That's really a genius way to say it, Devon.
Cool. Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I really do appreciate your time. This has been an amazing conversation. So, once again, we've been speaking with Jordan Rose, founder of the Metaverse law firm Rose Law Group. My name again is Damon Cureton, senior journalist for XR Today. If you'd like to follow our conversations on social media, please follow the XR News hashtag at Twitter and LinkedIn. And this is once again, it's been a lovely time chatting. So thanks so much for joining us today, and have yourself a great time. Bye now.